When Keanu Reeves walked into a luxury hotel lobby one evening, he didn't expect to witness something shocking. Sandra Bullock, his dear friend, was being humiliated in front of strangers. No screaming, no fight, just quiet pain in her eyes. What Keanu did next left the entire room in silence. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories that inspire and teach kindness. The night was warm, and the golden lights of Beverly Hills glowed against the glass walls of one of the most expensive hotels in Los Angeles. Celebrities often came here. It was a place where the rich and powerful felt at home, where money seemed to define worth. Keanu Reeves, always humble despite his fame, was there to meet a friend for dinner. He walked slowly through the grand lobby, dressed simply in jeans and a blazer. No flashy watch, no loud entrance. That was never his style. As he entered, he saw her. Sandra Bullock, his longtime friend and co-star, a woman who had faced the storm of Hollywood with grace and strength. She was standing at the front desk, her posture polite but tense. Her voice soft, almost apologetic, as if she was trying not to disturb anyone. The hotel staff, however, didn't seem to care who she was. A young receptionist, no older than 25, smirked as Sandra explained there was a mistake with her booking. Instead of checking calmly, the staff raised their voice. "Ma'am, this is a luxury hotel," the receptionist said, stressing the word luxury. "If you can't meet the requirements, I'm afraid we cannot accommodate you." A few guests in the lobby turned to watch. Whispers started floating. Sandra's cheeks grew red, not from guilt, but from embarrassment. She wasn't just Sandra Bullock, the actress in that moment. She was a woman being treated unfairly, with no dignity. Keanu froze. His calm eyes narrowed as he watched his friend shrink under the weight of humiliation. He knew Sandra was strong, but he also knew she carried her heart on her sleeve. And this moment hurt. He stepped closer. The night was warm, and the golden lights of Beverly Hills glowed against the glass walls of one of the most expensive hotels in Los Angeles. Celebrities often came here. It was a place where the rich and powerful felt at home, where money seemed to define worth. Keanu Reeves, always humble despite his fame, was there to meet a friend for dinner. He walked slowly through the grand lobby, dressed simply in jeans and a blazer. No flashy watch, no loud entrance. That was never his style. As he entered, he saw her. Sandra Bullock, his longtime friend and co-star, a woman who had faced the storm of Hollywood with grace and strength. She was standing at the front desk, her posture polite but tense. Her voice soft, almost apologetic, as if she was trying not to disturb anyone. The hotel staff, however, didn't seem to care who she was. A young receptionist, no older than 25, smirked as Sandra explained there was a mistake with her booking. Instead of checking calmly, the staff raised their voice. "Ma'am, this is a luxury hotel," the receptionist said, stressing the word luxury. "If you can't meet the requirements, I'm afraid we cannot accommodate you." A few guests in the lobby turned to watch. Whispers started floating. Sandra's cheeks grew red, not from guilt but from embarrassment. She wasn't just Sandra Bullock, the actress in that moment. She was a woman being treated unfairly, with no dignity. Keanu froze. His calm eyes narrowed as he watched his friend shrink under the weight of humiliation. He knew Sandra was strong, but he also knew she carried her heart on her sleeve. And this moment hurt. He stepped closer. The suite door closed with a soft click, shutting out the noise of the lobby. Inside, the room was stunning. Golden lamps, velvet chairs, and a view that stretched across the glittering Los Angeles skyline. But Sandra didn't look at any of it. She dropped her bag on the couch and sat down slowly, her shoulders heavy. For a moment, silence filled the air. Keanu didn't rush to speak. He simply sat across from her, his presence steady, giving her the space she needed. He knew from experience that sometimes silence was the kindest gift you could offer. Sandra finally exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'd think after all these years, I'd be used to it, but it still hurts." Keanu tilted his head, listening, not judging. "They didn't see me as a person," she continued, her eyes fixed on the floor. Just someone to mock. Like I didn't belong. And the worst part? For a second, I almost believed them. Keanu leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Sandy, you've given the world so much. You've made people laugh, cry, and feel less alone. If someone can't see your worth, that's not your flaw. It's theirs. She looked up at him, her eyes glassy. But why does it sting so much, Kay? I've been in Hollywood for decades. I've faced critics, tabloids, lies. But this, something so small, still cuts deep. He paused, then said softly, because respect is the most basic kindness. When it's denied, it feels like a piece of your dignity is stolen. That's why it hurts. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Sandra blinked, her lips trembling into a faint smile. You always make it sound so simple. Keanu smiled back gently. It is simple. People complicate it. But kindness, respect, dignity, those should never be negotiable. Sandra leaned back on the couch, a tear escaping down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed, but Keanu noticed. He didn't point it out. He simply reached across and gave her hand a light squeeze. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was just one friend reminding another that they were safe, seen, and valued. You know, Sandra said after a pause, when I saw you walking toward me in the lobby, I felt like I could breathe again. Just knowing someone was on my side. Keanu chuckled softly. I'll always be on your side, Sandy. That's what friends are for. The room softened then. The weight began to lift. Sandra leaned back against the cushions, finally allowing herself to relax. The morning sun spilled through the tall curtains of the suite. Sandra sat by the window with a cup of coffee, her hair tied loosely, her eyes still carrying the weight of the night before. She hadn't slept much. The scene in the lobby replayed in her mind like an unwanted movie. Meanwhile, Keanu had already been awake for hours. He was quietly sitting at the small desk, writing in a worn leather notebook he always carried. For him, reflection was a habit, a way to find balance in a noisy world. Sandra finally broke the silence. Do you think people noticed? What happened last night? Keanu closed his notebook slowly, placing the pen neatly on top. Of course they did. People always notice conflict. But what they choose to remember is what matters. Sandra frowned slightly. I don't want this to become some headline about me throwing a fit. I didn't even say anything, Keanu smiled faintly. That's exactly why it will mean more. You didn't fight back with anger. You stood there with dignity, even when they tried to strip it away. That speaks louder than shouting ever could. Just then, Sandra's phone buzzed on the table. Dozens of messages filled the screen. Friends, colleagues, even journalists. Some had already posted online. Sandra Bullock mistreated at Beverly Hills Hotel, and Keanu Reeves defends Sandra from rude staff. Sandra sighed. See, this is what I feared. It's already out there. People twisting it, making it bigger than it was. Keanu walked over, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. Let them. You can't control the story they tell. But you can control how you carry yourself in the middle of it. Sandra nodded slowly. She admired that about him. He never let the noise of the world decide who he was. And maybe, just maybe, she could learn to do the same. By noon, the hotel itself had issued a statement, apologizing publicly to Sandra and promising better staff training. Guests who had been in the lobby also began sharing their accounts online. Some wrote about Sandra's quiet grace. Others described how Keanu's calm but firm words had changed the mood of the entire room. One guest posted, I've stayed in this hotel for years, but last night I saw something different. Real strength doesn't need to shout. Keanu reminded all of us what respect looks like. Sandra read that post aloud, her eyes softening. For the first time since the humiliation, she felt a little lighter. Keanu chuckled. See? Even the internet can get it right sometimes. Sandra laughed too, the sound breaking through the heaviness. Leave it to you to find hope in all this. Later that afternoon, Sandra and Keanu decided to take a quiet walk outside the hotel. Away from the flashing lights of cameras and the polished marble floors, They strolled down a shaded street lined with old oak trees. Sandra wore a simple hat and sunglasses, trying to stay unnoticed, while Keanu walked beside her in his usual humble style, hands tucked into his pockets, eyes calm, almost as if he belonged more to the streets than the red carpet. "Kay," Sandra said softly. "I've been thinking, all those people watching last night, maybe some of them will think about how they treat others. Maybe that's the good that can come from it." Keanu nodded. "That's the only thing we can hope for. Not to erase the hurt, but to use it. To turn humiliation into a mirror for people who forget that respect is free." Sandra smiled faintly. "I wish I had your piece. You make everything sound less heavy." He chuckled. "It's not peace, Sandy, it's practice. Every day the world gives us chances to choose who we want to be. Some days I fail. Some days I do better. But I try. And so do you." As they walked, a small family recognized them. A mother with her young daughter approached shyly. The little girl held out a notebook. "Miss Bullock, Mr. Reeves. Can I have your autograph?" Sandra bent down, smiling warmly. She signed the notebook and asked the girl about school, her favorite subject, her dreams. Keanu signed too, but before handing it back, he added a simple note. "Be kind. It matters more than you know." The girl beamed, and the family thanked them before walking away. Sandra looked at Keanu, touched. "See, that's the difference. You don't just sign your name, you leave something behind." Keanu shrugged softly. "Names fade. Words stay." That night back in the suite, Sandra reflected on the past 24 hours. The humiliation still stung, but it didn't define her. What stayed with her was Keanu's calm voice, his unwavering defense, his reminder that dignity was worth protecting. She sat at the desk where his leather notebook still rested. Flipping it open carefully, she noticed a line he had written earlier that morning. It read, "The world may measure us by money, fame, or status, but real worth is shown in how we treat the people who can give us nothing in return." Sandra smiled, closing the notebook gently. She realized that sometimes the hardest moments, the ones that leave you embarrassed or bruised, are the same ones that teach you the most about yourself and about the people who truly stand by your side. Keanu Reeves hadn't saved her with loud words or dramatic gestures. He had done it with presence, with kindness, with truth, and that was enough. So what does this story teach us? That respect isn't a luxury, it's a basic right. No amount of wealth, status, or power can replace simple human kindness. Sandra Bullock's humiliation at that hotel wasn't just a celebrity moment. It was a reminder of how fragile dignity can be when others forget their compassion. And Keanu Reeves showed us something timeless. You don't need to shout to protect someone. Sometimes the quiet voice, the steady hand, the calm reminder of respect, that is the strongest shield of all.